With Ghostbusters Afterlife breathing life back into the franchise after its success in theaters, there is a very real possibility that this will be the start of another series of movies and perhaps years of new content for the beloved property. As fans, we know a new crop of young Ghostbusters will be taking the place of Ray, Egon, Peter, and Winston. But we've now had a chance to see them in action one more time, and we can now say goodbye and turn our attention to the next generation.
We're the best, we're the beautiful, we're the only Ghostbusters.
And if the final end credit scene of Afterlife comes to pass, we may very well still be seeing at least one of our original Ghostbusters in a future sequel. But for now, our nostalgia is satisfied and we can leave the past in the past, right? Well, perhaps not quite yet. While researching for another story, we came across something that was a total surprise. Let's call it a series of contradictions. And what we learned when we laid all of the facts out on the table is that someone or someones lied on the way to making the original 1984 Ghostbusters movie. We'll show you the facts from long-forgotten interviews during the movie's original run. Was Bill Murray tricked into playing the iconic role of Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters? Was there a Game of Thrones Littlefinger at the heart of the original Ghostbusters, or was it all a misunderstanding?
That's what I am.
You don't want to miss this episode.
Switch me on.
Also, make sure you stay tuned until later in the show, where we'll be showing you a groundbreaking way to build your credit thanks to our sponsor, Extra.
Extra!
If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so now, and give us a thumbs up if you want more untold stories of your favorite shows. Also, click the notification bell to never miss an episode, and make sure you stay tuned to the end to see how to get this awesome Ghostbusters graphic design from the amazing artists at mixtease.com. Let's remember that whatever we uncover today, ultimately Ghostbusters was a cultural phenomenon and an incredible success. And no matter how the movie came to pass, the important thing is that it was made, and we are all better for it. Ghostbusters was the first comedy to use extensive special effects, and it's responsible for creating a whole new genre of movies. So nothing we talk about today can change the success of this iconic movie franchise or its legacy. That said, waters surrounding how and why Bill Murray ended up becoming a Ghostbuster is murky. The accepted truth and current narrative of that story has holes in it, and it is a mystery that needs to be explored. We aim to get to the truth, and the truth begins with Dan Aykroyd. In fact, the entire Ghostbusters story begins with him because it was his idea. Dan Aykroyd began writing Ghostbusters in late 1981 after reading an article about quantum physics and parapsychology. He started thinking about classic ghost comedy movies. Ghosts had always been a fascination for Aykroyd. He was a fourth-generation believer in spirits and mediums, and his father even wrote a book called History of Ghosts. Ghostbusters was a natural extension of his beliefs and family history. Ghostbusters was also a vehicle for John Belushi and Aykroyd's next movie together. After doing 4 films, they were becoming a power duo, and Dan wanted to continue the magic. But when Belushi died on March 5th, 1982, ironically while writing one of Belushi's lines for Ghostbusters, the run would be over and Aykroyd would lose one of his best friends. It's hard to tell what Aykroyd went through at this point. Dan had been an ensemble actor in a few very good movies, the Blues Brothers being the biggest. Just a few months after Belushi's death, Aykroyd starred in Dr. Detroit. The result was terrible. Both critics and fans disliked the movie. Although Aykroyd labored to make a good movie, he isn't very funny, and it becomes obvious he needs a comedic counterbalance. A very smart man, Aykroyd likely realized this.
We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses.
Which would explain his desire to write roles for his fellow Saturday Night Live alums in movies he wanted to make. At that time, Aykroyd's strength was in his writing. He won an Emmy for Outstanding Writing on SNL in 1979, and he also won an Emmy the year before for Best Supporting Actor on the show. And that's what Aykroyd was, a great supporting actor. Whether on Saturday Night with Steve Martin as one of two wild and crazy guys, the Elwood to Belushi's Jake in The Blues Brothers, or Eddie Murphy's unlikely partner in Trading Places, Aykroyd was incredibly talented, but especially when playing off a stronger character. Even when making Ghostbusters, Aykroyd would continuously push more lines at Bill Murray. He would say, "Billy is better with the girls."
That's a different look for you, isn't it?
Are you the keymaster?
Not that I know of.
Which is how he ended up with the Sigourney Weaver love interest. When asked during an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer just before the premiere of Ghostbusters about why the other two characters seemed to play support roles to the Venkman character, Murray playfully called Aykroyd lazy and said, "Dan just keeps giving me more lines and parts in the movie." Was this Aykroyd being generous, or did Dan know that it was better for the movie that he was a supporting actor? So when Belushi died, it wouldn't be a big surprise if Aykroyd wanted to attach himself to another strong comedian that he could also support and make an incredible movie with. He needed a new partner, and where is a better place to look than people he'd already worked with from Saturday Night Live? While working with Eddie Murphy on Trading Places in late 1982 and early 1983, Aykroyd offered him a role in Ghostbusters. Murphy declined as he was already committed to making Beverly Hills Cop. Now, this is where the narrative in the Ghostbusters story starts to become unclear. Whether it's wishful thinking or perhaps revisionist history, Aykroyd's story about Murphy's role in the film has changed over time. Originally, nothing was said about Murphy being one of the original Ghostbusters. Then Murphy was always supposed to be one of the original Ghostbusters. And then Murphy was up for the role that became Winston Zeddemore and was played by Ernie Hudson.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
From a casual observer, it seems like Aykroyd changes the narrative when it makes the most sense. Aykroyd never mentioned that he was writing for anyone other than Belushi. Perhaps he was writing for Murphy as well, but that didn't come out until years later, and only after Dan divulged that Murphy had been approached for the film. Perhaps it's true, but even if it's not, what harm is there in him saying it? It made Eddie feel good, and it also makes for a more interesting and rich Ghostbusters history. Only Dan truly knows. But what's odd is the original three Ghostbusters did not include Winston Zeddemore. He was added for someone to give the audience's perspective on what was going on. So why did Aykroyd say that that had been Eddie's part? He seems to be trying to neatly fit all the puzzle pieces together, but it also makes him appear that he's not telling the truth, or that he is at least making it up as he goes. What's even further curious is that Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters, said Murray was never even considered for the film's cast. Why would Aykroyd never mention that he offered a role to Murphy? He rewrote the entire script with Reitman and Harold Ramis. Murphy admitted it in 2019, so we know it happened. But why didn't Aykroyd mention this to anyone during pre-production for Ghostbusters? This is likely why. According to Don Shea's Making Ghostbusters book, published in November 1985, Dan Aykroyd sent a half-completed script to Bill Murray and talked to him about picking up the mantle left by Belushi. This would have happened shortly after his death.
You wouldn't do that to me, would you, man?
According to Aykroyd, Murray responded favorably to the script, and because of that sent the script to Reitman in hopes he would direct the film. This would have been sometime between April and July of 1982. Reitman would look at the script and not have any idea how he was going to make the futuristic, interdimensional ghost-busting movie that Aykroyd had written, so he set it aside. Aykroyd continued working on the script. On December 13, 1982, principal photography would begin for Trading Places. Aykroyd is reported to have finished the script for Ghostbusters a month later on January 20th, 1983, but shooting on Trading Places wouldn't end until March 1st, so it is sometime in this 2.5-month window while finishing the Ghostbusters script that Aykroyd would offer the role to Eddie Murphy.
I am not listening to Jeffrey, but he's still talking. I am not listening to you.
It seems as if Aykroyd never mentions Murphy because he doesn't want anyone to know at that time. If Aykroyd asked Murray to be in Ghostbusters before Murphy, Bill Murray certainly never mentioned it. We have a sneaky suspicion that Bill Murray was not formally offered the part until after Eddie Murphy declined and Ivan Reitman agreed to do the movie. This would make more sense as to why the Eddie Murphy story keeps changing. Once Aykroyd finished the script in January 1983 and was turned down by Murphy, Dan would submit his fully completed 180-page script to Reitman in April. Aykroyd wasn't certain Reitman would go for it, so Dan did everything he could to sell the script to the director. He had his artist friend create concept art, and he created a videotape of himself wearing the Ghostbusters uniform and gear which he made himself from styrofoam and old radio parts. Aykroyd would go a long way to get Reitman to agree to do his movie. Would he also say Bill Murray agreed to be in Ghostbusters when perhaps he had not? In the documentary Ghostbusters: The Movies That Made Us, the story about Aykroyd sending the script to Bill Murray and getting his buy-off to be in the film is never mentioned. In fact, the only thing said about Murray by multiple people interviewed is that Dan said he was going to be in the movie. It was mentioned so frequently and awkwardly, it was as if they were saying perhaps it wasn't true at the time. Even Aykroyd looks extraordinarily uncomfortable addressing it in the documentary. To be fair, Murray was extraordinarily difficult to nail down for a role. But there are implications here that Aykroyd was the only one who knew Murray was going to be in the movie. Murray's agent doesn't vouch for it. Reitman, who had just made 2 films with Murray, doesn't vouch for it. And Aykroyd doesn't have anything intelligible to say about it. Perhaps the reality is, the truth would change the story, and no one wants to talk about it considering the worldwide success of Ghostbusters. As we all know, it's much easier to overlook things when you succeed. But don't be fooled by past success. Ghostbusters was anything but a guarantee at the time this was happening. The importance of Murray being tied to this movie is incredibly important. It is very likely Ghostbusters doesn't happen if they don't believe Murray is going to be in the movie. Columbia Pictures and its executive Frank Price had just made an extraordinarily successful comedy with Reitman, Murray, and Ramis with Stripes. Bill Murray was as bankable a star as there was for a comedy at that time, and there is no way Price was going to agree to make a $25 million comedy without Bill Murray. Back then, to pay that much money for a comedy was outrageous. When Price's boss called him and said, "Don't do this," Price told him, "But I have Murray. There is no way we lose." But did he have Murray at that time? He certainly did not. Reitman agreed to direct the film in May 1983 with Bill Murray in one of the roles. Columbia also agreed to do the movie with Bill Murray that same month. So why didn't Murray know he was making a Ghostbusters movie until after all that happened? In a rare and revealing Rolling Stone interview on August 16, 1984, Bill Murray explained how he ended up doing Ghostbusters. In what is likely the most comprehensive interview he's ever done about his life, the interviewer asked him an odd question. He said, "I heard you had to agree to do Ghostbusters in order to get backing for The Razor's Edge." The Razor's Edge was a passion project Murray had been working on for several years. He hoped that movie would showcase his dramatic acting ability in an Oscar bait role. Murray told the reporter that The Razor's Edge was already in development at Columbia before Ghostbusters was even discussed. Bill explained how the studio had given him a little bit of money to write the screenplay, but nobody was really interested in how the rewrites were going. We cross-referenced a few other articles from 1984, and we learned that Murray felt like the studio was delaying in hopes he'd eventually change his mind and lose interest in the project. Murray then goes on to say in the Rolling Stone article that Dan Aykroyd called him up with the Ghostbusters idea. He said he told him it was great. Murray said Aykroyd sent him 75 pages and within an hour there was a deal. Why did he say this? Dan's story has always been that he got Murray to commit to the movie before he ever went to Ivan Reitman, or for that matter, Columbia. However, in this interview, Murray explains that when he was approached by Aykroyd about Ghostbusters, they already had a director, a producer, and a caterer, but the movie wasn't attached to a studio yet. How could Ghostbusters already have a director the first time Murray hears about it? The only common denominator here is Dan Aykroyd. Murray continues to tell the interviewer that all of the studios found out about Ghostbusters and wanted it. According to Reitman, Columbia is the first place they went because he had clout with them. Price agreed to do the movie immediately. Why is Murray saying this unless that is what someone is telling him to get him hyped about doing Ghostbusters? Hey Bill, yeah, everyone wants to make it. It's going to be huge. According to Murray, Dan Aykroyd was pushing him to do Ghostbusters, but Murray told him he really wanted to be making The Razor's Edge. He told him about his difficulty making the movie with Columbia. Murray credits Aykroyd for suggesting that he offered to give the studio Ghostbusters if the studio was willing to make The Razor's Edge. Did you hear what he just said? Give the studio Ghostbusters. The only problem here is that Columbia already has Ghostbusters, and Murray doesn't seem to know that. Murray hasn't said much about this in the years since, but the official story now is that Murray would agree to be in Ghostbusters if Columbia made his movie. That is not what Murray is saying here. We believe that it is very likely that both Murray and the studio were duped, much to the success of everyone involved, but duped they seem to be. What we haven't told you is at that time, the same agent was representing Aykroyd, Reitman, Ramis, and yes, Bill Murray. His name was Michael Ovitz, and he helped seal the deal between Reitman and Columbia. In fact, Ovitz would be the one talking to the studio for the actors, not the actors themselves. We believe that when Aykroyd told Murray to let Columbia know they could have Ghostbusters if they made his movie, Murray would have told this to his agent Ovitz. Ovitz, already knowing what was going on, must have thought this strange. But stranger things have happened in the movie business. Now, this is all hypothetical and no fact, but before Ovitz called Frank Price, was his next call to Aykroyd or Reitman? Regardless, they were all in deep doo-doo if things fell apart at this point. So we believe Ovitz went to Price and Columbia with an offer that sounded something like this. Bill will only agree to do Ghostbusters if you guys start making his movie first. Price would go on to say what choice did he have, further contradicting Murray's comments that Ghostbusters didn't have a studio yet. It sure did have a studio, and that guy bet his job with his bosses that Bill Murray was in the movie. Ultimately, Price said he didn't think he'd lose money on The Razor's Edge, so he agreed. The problem was that Ghostbusters had a deadline date of being in theaters a year later, and Murray wouldn't film Ghostbusters until after he'd filmed his movie abroad. This is another reason we know the time frame takes place after the May agreement between Reitman and Columbia. Ghostbusters' principal photography would begin in October, and Murray needed 5 months to do The Razor's Edge. That means June through October of 1983. So is Aykroyd the Game of Thrones Littlefinger of the Ghostbusters universe, or was it a team effort that included Ovitz and Reitman, and now no one wants to talk about it? Perhaps Reitman and their agent had a, "Wow, Dan, I thought you said we had him" moment. It seems that Aykroyd lied, or at least stretched the truth to get Bill to agree. But there are other possibilities. Maybe Murray is the one not telling the truth in his article to Rolling Stone. We're not sure what his motivation would be to lie, but it is possible. We need to also highlight that Murray was extremely difficult to get to commit to a movie or a role. It's something that continues to this day, so it's also possible that this was a case of more of that. Murray showed up to Meatballs on the first day of shooting without Reitman knowing if he'd be there or not. He had to convince Murray over and over again to do Stripes. And he showed up 5 days into filming Ghostbusters, when if he really wanted to, he could have been there on time. There is also the possibility that Aykroyd really did believe Murray would do the movie when he told Reitman. Maybe he talked to him on the phone or saw him and they talked about it and Murray was just being nice and then totally forgot about it. It wouldn't be difficult for Aykroyd to confuse Murray's intentions when it came to Ghostbusters. Aykroyd admitted to being diagnosed with Asperger's in the early 80s when his wife encouraged him to see a doctor because of his obsession with ghosts and law enforcement. We know a lot more about Asperger's today as it is associated with high-functioning autism. Some of our greatest minds are believed to have had high-functioning autism, to include Albert Einstein. And even Elon Musk has admitted to having Asperger's, and no one can doubt how incredibly gifted his mind is. That said, there are difficulties that come with that, and that may include understanding people's motives in social situations. Is this what happened to Aykroyd? Perhaps he really believed Murray was going to be in his movie. It's hard to believe Aykroyd has a deceptive bone in his body. So while the story doesn't seem to line up, there are more possibilities than Dan Aykroyd lied and tricked people into getting Ghostbusters made. Regardless of what the truth is, no one seems to be hot and bothered about it today. Bill Murray has little to say, and there is nothing but positive energy surrounding the future of Ghostbusters as the forefathers of the ghostbusting industry hand over their proton packs. When all is said and done, the world is a better place because of Ghostbusters, and if any one of those people making this iconic film needed to lie, cheat, or steal to get it done, I don't think any of us would lose any sleep over it.
No sense worrying about it now. Why worry? Each of us is wearing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on his back.
Do you think Bill Murray was tricked into doing Ghostbusters, or was he just being difficult? Looking back, would you have wanted them to do whatever it took to make sure Bill was in the movie? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Also, check out this incredible Ghostbusters graphic design from the amazing artists at mixtees.com. Get 20% off your purchase by using coupon code THEPOPCAST. The link is in the description below. Hungry for more current pop culture news? Then make sure you head over and subscribe to the Popcast Unleashed for daily content. Hear us talk about all of your favorite things. Click on the link in the description below. Until next time.
Aren't you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt?
Don't want the show to end? Become a Popcast member by hitting the join button to get exclusive content including special member live streams, Discord privileges, behind the scenes access, and so much more. Click join and let's hang out.